Hey, welcome back to the channel. Tonight I got something really special for y'all. I'm going to be showing you how to take some real epic shots of the night sky. Astrophotography is one of the things I'm constantly getting asked about. How are you able to get epic shots of the night sky where you can see all the stars? And so there's a few things I wanted to go over before getting into the equipment I use that's going to help you out with that. For my ISO, I try to keep that as low as possible. ISO is just the sensitivity of that sensor and the light coming in and how it affects the sensor. The lower that is, the less sensitive to light it is. So that's a bit of a trade-off because it's not going to be able to capture as much light. However, the lower it is, the less noise that the image will have. When we talk about noise, that's not quite pixelation, but it's kind of a fuzziness or the film grain that the image has. Now, with a lot of modern cameras and modern software, we're able to remove noise very easily. But when you're shooting the night sky, a lot of times it confuses that noise and stars that are off in the distance, and it can kind of get them mixed up and then remove stars when you remove that noise. So that's why I try and shoot as low as possible, but still getting as much light in as possible. Now, aperture, that is the opening of the lens and how much light it can let in. I like to go as wide as possible, that way the most light can come into the camera. However, one thing you need to be mindful of is the wider the aperture is, the more light you are getting, but also that depth of field is a lot shallower. So if you're not really good at being able to focus in on stars, it is gonna make your images blurry. So you gotta be very careful. However, I do like shooting with the lens wide open. Sometimes I'll step it down just a little bit, but that really depends. Now for my shutter speed, normally I try and keep it under 20 seconds long. If you get to 25 or 30 seconds long, depending on the focal length of your lens, you might get some star trails. If that's what you're going for, then you want 30, you might even want it to be 10-minute long exposures. However, I'm not a big fan of star trails unless it's shooting stars or meteorites, and that's why I try and keep it under 20 seconds as much as possible. But I still also try and keep it at least over 2 seconds. That way I'm letting in a good amount of light. So going over that again, ISO as low as possible, but letting in as much light as possible. Aperture, I normally shoot wide open, and then shutter speed, that's also going to depend on the ISO, but I try and have that to be about 20 to 5 seconds long, somewhere in that range. Now the equipment that you're going to need to be able to shoot really good photos of the Milky Way or just astrophotography is going to be some sort of camera that has manual settings. That way you can control the shutter speed, you can control the aperture, and you can control the ISO. Now the other thing you're going to want is also a very sturdy tripod. A $25 one from Best Buy probably won't cut it. It'll get you started, but those just tend to be a little janky, and also if you have a really good camera, I wouldn't want to put those and risk those. That's why I always try and make sure that I have a really good sturdy tripod, that way it's not moving while it's taking the exposure. Another thing is you're going to want a very wide lens, something that can get most of the sky. If you have a 24mm, that can get a good amount, but it's kind of compressing it a little bit more. If you have, say, a 50 or more, that's getting just a small section of the night sky. So you're going to want something really wide, but you're also going to want something fast. When we say fast, we're talking aperture and just how wide it is. That means it can let more light in. So I highly recommend getting a lens that's Something that has a 2.8 will be great. You can get faster than that, but sometimes that really shallows your depth of field to where it's harder to get the stars in focus. One of the biggest things is you're going to want to get some sort of app to help you track where the stars are in the sky, as well as when the moon is out and when it rises, when it sets, because you want to make sure that you're going out on a moonless night where the moon is not in the sky. Otherwise the moon will pollute the sky with some light, and it's going to be harder to be able to see the Milky Way in your photos. One of the other things that's important about that too, having some sort of way of tracking the stars, is that way you know when the Milky Way rises and when the Milky Way sets, so that you know, hey, before you drive an hour out of town, that way you can see the night sky, you're going to know if you are or aren't going to be able to see the Milky Way. During the summertime is probably the best time to get photos of the Milky Way if we're in the northern hemisphere. So the Milky Way rises in the east and then it will set in the west, kind of around sunrise. Right now, you can't see it, and I can't see it because I have these lights set up, but the Milky Way is stretched just kind of out this way right here. All right, now you're gonna have to bear with me here. In order to get really good photos of the Milky Way, you're gonna wanna make sure that you don't have any lights around you. So I'm gonna have to try and kill these lights. Right now I have a 1.2 aperture lens on my EOS R, and that lets in a lot of light. So hopefully you'll still be able to see me a little bit. And then I can kind of talk you through some of the stuff I see with the night sky, how I frame, and then how I shoot these photos. Another thing that's really helpful if you're doing astrophotography, this is a bit much. I'm not encouraging you to go out and do this. However, it's an amazing experience, is to invest in some night vision. So this is really helpful that way, because you can't have lights on when you're getting photos of the Milky Way. And so while my camera is taking those 20-second long exposures, it's really cool to be able to lower the night vision and also just stargaze and be able to see around you while the camera is getting that exposure. The last time I came out here, there was actually mountain lions, and so it's also just a little bit of peace of mind being able to make sure that you're staying safe while getting some awesome shots. All right, so make sure my mic's on. Check. All right, so right now I have the Milky Way. It's kind of going across the sky right here. I have an alfalfa field in front of me. That way we can see all of that. One thing, I mean, if you invest in some night vision, be careful not to look at the screen with the tube. Right now I have it off. Once I start the shutter, then I'll turn it on. Sorry, I got distracted. There's satellites or something else up there. I'm gonna see if we can get those. All right, let's see how it came out. Ooh, that came out good. So right now I'm at 8-second exposure, f2.8 and ISO 3200. I liked that. I want a little more light, so I'm gonna go 10 seconds. I'm gonna go 13 seconds. I'm gonna check the focus. So I'm zooming in digitally, that way I can zoom into the brightest stars that I can find out there, and then manually I'm adjusting the focus of the lens. And in order to do that, on the LCD screen on the camera, I can zoom in 10 times. I just look for those bright dots and focusing them. In order to get them into focus, you just want to try and make those dots as small as possible. If they start to get larger, that means it's getting out of focus, and so you're getting that bokeh, those kind of round spheres. And so the smaller the stars are, the more in focus they are. All right, we're doing a 12-second exposure, same settings, f2.8 wide open, ISO 3200. I feel like that's high enough to where we're letting in more light, but it's not too high to where we're gonna have a lot of noise. All right, let's see that shot. So it's looking good. I'm liking it. I think I'm gonna change the aperture to 4 and see if that gets it to be sharper or more contrast. Oh, didn't say it before, huge thing. Make sure you are shooting in RAW. Do not shoot JPEG. If you're starting out, JPEG's all right, but still always shoot RAW, even if you're not able to edit RAW images on your current computer. Always shoot RAW, save them for the future. I have hundreds of photos from when I was first starting out that are phenomenal, but they're JPEG, and looking back at them, I want to re-edit them because they could be even better. And because they're JPEG, there's only so much you can do. When you shoot RAW, that is saving the images in a different format that just allows you to adjust them even more down the road. All right, let's see that image. All right, so it's a little dark. I'm gonna increase it to 20 seconds. The lens I'm using, I think I said it before, is a 15 to 35 millimeter. That is the the RF version. I just picked that up used the other week, so this is kind of the second time I've gotten a chance to use it. So one thing I'm gonna do is actually tilt the camera up a little bit so I get a little less of the ground in it. That plane's moving fast and it's dark, so I wonder if it's one from the Air Force Base. It's a couple miles away. All right, so now I'm going just to the sky. I'm trying not to get the ground in it. So we're just getting the night sky itself. Night sky. For your white balance, that's something I didn't really talk about before. You can have it auto, you can have it daylight, you can customize it. The white balance is normally something I'll mess with anyways in post-processing. I like a cooler sky, but a warmer Milky Way. And so that's kind of how I gauge my white balance when I'm shooting the Milky Way. All right, so that was really cool. However, I got a little bit of mountains in it. We're also getting some planes. So I'm gonna tilt and turn. I'm actually gonna go wide open again, bring that down, bring the ISO. So now I'm gonna try a 20-second f2.8 at 2000 ISO. I am just using single shutter. One thing that you could do that can improve it, unless if you have not super steady hands, is you can do a delayed shutter. And what that will do is it will give you a 3 or a 10-second countdown, and that way once you push the button, it gives the camera and the tripod a few seconds to make sure it's not moving at all. That way it's super still and stable. All right, that was really bright. I'm going to keep it at 20, and I'm gonna lower the ISO down to 1200. We're gonna see how that works. Here, now one thing I'm actually gonna do is I'm going to try and focus on the stars for you guys. There we go. You can kind of see them now. Good. All right, let's see what we got. All right, that's pretty cool. So I'm really loving the center of the Milky Way right now. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna zoom in a bit. I'm also gonna tilt the camera, that way I get the Milky Way kind of panning through the frame. So that's something that you can think about is you are shooting the sky. You don't really need your camera to always be perfectly aligned up and down, horizontal, vertical, whatever you want to call it. Oops. All right. Just going to, now that I zoomed in a bit, I'm going to refocus, just making sure that it is as crisp. Let's see what we get. I don't know if I mentioned this before. One thing you want to keep in mind is if you are zooming in more, you want your shutter speed to be faster, because the more zoomed in, the more that you'll see the stars moving in the sky because of the rotation of the Earth, and so you want it to be faster. All right, that was really good. Unfortunately, we have a plane that's coming through and cutting through Milky Way right now. So tonight there's also supposed to be a meteor shower. So after this shot, I'm gonna turn it. It's supposed to be kind of just to the left of the Big Dipper here. So I'm gonna see if we can get any shots of that. Making sure I thought I heard something over there. Ooh, that is a good shot. 20 seconds, f2.8, 1250 ISO, Milky Way, image 1633. That shot's sick. All right, unfortunately, we have this darn plane rolling in, so I'm gonna rotate. We're gonna see if we can get any meteors.